Listen to me right now. Your words are building your world every single day. Every single conversation, you're either lifting yourself up or tearing yourself down. And most of you don't even know it. You wonder why doors don't open, why people don't listen, why opportunities pass you by. But you're not looking at the one thing that's always with you: your voice, your words, the way you communicate with the world. See, I'm going to tell you something nobody else wants to say. You're not broke because of your circumstances. You're broke because of your communication. You're not stuck because of bad luck. You're stuck because you haven't learned how to speak power into your situation. And I'm not talking about talking loud. I'm not talking about being aggressive or arrogant. I'm talking about understanding the psychology of words, the science of influence, the art of connecting with another human being in a way that changes everything. Because here's what I know: the most successful people in this world aren't always the smartest. They're not always the most talented. But they know how to communicate. They know how to make people feel something. They know how to turn a conversation into an opportunity, a moment into a movement. And you can learn this too. But first, you've got to be willing to look in the mirror. You've got to be willing to admit that maybe, just maybe, the way you've been speaking to yourself and others hasn't been working. Maybe it's time to evolve, to grow, to master something that will change your entire life: your communication. So let me ask you something. When was the last time you really listened to yourself? When was the last time you paid attention to the words coming out of your mouth, the tone you use, the energy you project, the confidence or lack of confidence in your voice? Most people go through life on autopilot. They speak without thinking. They react without reflecting. And then they wonder why nothing changes, why the same problems keep showing up, why the same people keep disrespecting them. It's because you're telegraphing your value with every word. You're showing people how to treat you with every sentence. And if you don't understand this, you're going to keep getting the same results. But today that changes. Today you're going to learn the psychology behind powerful communication. Not tricks, not manipulation, real understanding of how human beings process words, emotions, and energy. Because when you master this, you master relationships, you master negotiations, you master your career, your family dynamics, your entire life trajectory. Let's start with something fundamental, something most people get completely wrong. Confidence isn't about what you say. It's about what you don't say. Think about that for a second. The most powerful people in the room aren't the ones talking the most. They're the ones who know when to be silent, when to listen, when to let their presence speak before their words do. You ever notice that? You ever notice how someone can walk into a room and command attention without saying a word? That's not magic. That's psychology. That's understanding that communication happens before you even open your mouth. Your posture is communication. Your eye contact is communication. The way you carry yourself, the energy you bring into a space, all of it is telling people who you are before you ever introduce yourself. And here's what most people do wrong. They're so desperate to prove themselves that they overtalk. They fill every silence with nervous chatter. They try to convince people of their value instead of embodying it. But power doesn't explain itself. Power just is. So the first lesson in speaking smart is learning to be comfortable in silence, learning to pause, to breathe, to let your words have weight instead of throwing them around like confetti. When you speak less and say more, people lean in. They pay attention. They respect what comes out of your mouth because you've shown them it's valuable by not wasting their time. Now, let me tell you about the second principle. And this one's going to challenge some of you. Nobody cares about you. They care about themselves. I know that sounds harsh, but it's the truth. And once you accept this truth, your communication transforms overnight. Most people communicate from their own perspective, their own needs, their own agenda. And then they get frustrated when nobody listens, when nobody helps, when nobody cares. But effective communication starts with understanding the other person's world, their pain, their dreams, their fears, their desires. When you learn to speak to what matters to them, suddenly you matter to them. When you learn to make your words about their needs, they become invested in what you're saying. This is the psychology of influence. This is how leaders lead, how salespeople sell, how negotiators negotiate, how parents connect with their children, how partners build stronger relationships. You stop making it about you and start making it about them. And paradoxically, that's when you get what you need. Let me give you an example. You're asking for a raise. Most people walk in talking about their bills, their expenses, why they need more money. And the boss sits there thinking, that's not my problem. But if you walk in talking about the value you've created, the problems you've solved, the ways you've made that boss's life easier and the company more money, now you're speaking their language. Now you're communicating smart. See the difference? It's not about what you need. It's about what you bring. It's not about your problems. It's about their solutions. And this applies to every area of your life, every conversation, every interaction. You want people to listen. Make them the hero of the story. You want people to help you. Show them how helping you helps them. You want people to respect you. Respect what matters to them first. That's the psychology of powerful communication. Now here's where it gets deeper. Here's where most people never go. Your words have energy, and people feel that energy before they process your logic. This is neuroscience. This is how the human brain works. When you speak, people aren't just hearing your words. They're feeling your emotion, your belief, your conviction, or your doubt, your fear, your hesitation, and they respond to the energy, not the content. You can say all the right words with all the wrong energy and get nowhere. Or you can say simple words with powerful energy and move mountains. Think about Martin Luther King Jr. standing on those steps. I have a dream. Simple words. But the energy behind them, the conviction, the certainty, the passion, that's what changed the world. Think about any great speech you've ever heard. Any moment that gave you chills. It wasn't the vocabulary. It was the soul behind the words. The belief system pouring through the voice. And you have access to that same power. Right now, today. In your next conversation. In your next meeting. In your next difficult moment. But you've got to clean up your internal communication first. Because here's what nobody tells you. The way you speak to others is a direct reflection of how you speak to yourself. If your internal dialogue is weak, negative, defeated, that's what's going to come out of your mouth. You can't speak power externally if you're speaking poison internally. So let me ask you, what have you been saying to yourself? Are you calling yourself stupid when you make a mistake? Are you saying, I can't, before you even try? Are you replaying your failures on a loop in your mind while ignoring your victories? Because that self-talk is programming your communication. It's setting the frequency you broadcast to the world. And people pick up on that frequency whether you realize it or not. You want to speak smart. Start speaking life to yourself. Start speaking possibility. Start speaking strength even when you feel weak. Especially when you feel weak. Because the words you use with yourself create the energy you project to others. And that energy determines how people respond to you, how they treat you, how they value you. This is the foundation, the bedrock. You cannot build powerful external communication on a foundation of weak internal communication. So here's your first action step. For the next 7 days, I want you to pay attention to your self-talk. Every time you catch yourself speaking, negatively about yourself, stop. Reframe it. Instead of, I'm so stupid, say, I'm learning. Instead of, I can't do this, say, I'm figuring this out. Instead of, I always mess up, say, I'm growing through this. Watch what happens. Watch how your external communication shifts. Watch how people start responding to you differently. Because you're changing the energy. You're changing the frequency. And that brings me to the next level. The next layer of speaking smart. Master the art of storytelling. Human beings are wired for stories, not facts, not data. Stories, because stories bypass logic and go straight to emotion. And emotion drives decision making more than anything else. You can give someone 100 reasons why they should do something. But if you tell them a story that makes them feel something, that's what they'll remember. That's what will move them to action. This is why the best leaders are storytellers. The best teachers are storytellers. The best communicators in any field know how to wrap their message in a narrative that connects. And you don't have to be a professional speaker to do this. You just have to understand the basic structure of a compelling story. And here it is. Someone with a problem faces an obstacle, takes action, and experiences transformation. That's it. That's the foundation of every story that's ever moved you. Every movie you've cried at. Every book you couldn't put down. Every speech that gave you goosebumps. Problem, obstacle, action, transformation. And you can use this structure in a job interview, in a business pitch, in a conversation with your children, in a difficult conversation with your partner, anywhere you need to communicate something important. Instead of just stating facts, tell the story. Paint the picture. Make them see it. Feel it. Experience it with you. When you're trying to motivate your team, don't just tell them what needs to be done. Tell them the story of what's possible, the transformation that awaits, the person they can become through this process. When you're having a tough conversation, don't just attack the problem. Tell the story of how you got here, what you've been feeling, what you hope for. Make them understand the journey, not just the destination. Stories create connection, and connection is the foundation of all powerful communication. But here's the key. Your stories have to be authentic. People can smell fake from a mile away. They can feel when you're performing versus when you're being real. And authenticity is the ultimate currency in communication. So tell your real stories, your struggles, your failures, your comebacks, your fears and your triumphs. Because vulnerability isn't weakness. Vulnerability is the bridge that connects you to other human beings. When you're willing to be real, people trust you. When people trust you, they listen. When they listen, you can influence. When you can influence, you can lead. When you can lead, you can change lives, including your own. Now let's talk about something that separates the amateurs from the masters. Something that will elevate your communication beyond anything you've experienced before. Learn to read the room. Emotional intelligence, social awareness, whatever you want to call it. It's the ability to sense what's happening beneath the surface, to pick up on unspoken cues, to understand what someone means even when they're not saying it directly. Most people are so focused on what they want to say that they completely miss what's happening right in front of them. They're so locked into their agenda that they can't adapt to the moment. And that's why their communication falls flat. But the masters, they're constantly scanning, constantly adjusting, constantly reading the energy in the room and calibrating their message accordingly. You walk into a meeting ready to pitch an idea, but you sense tension. You notice people are stressed, distracted. This isn't the moment for a big pitch. This is the moment to address the tension, to acknowledge what everyone's feeling, but nobody's saying. That's reading the room. You're having a conversation with your partner about something important, but you notice they're shutting down, crossing their arms, Looking away, you can keep pushing your point and create a fight, or you can pause. Shift gears. Ask what they're really feeling. Get underneath the surface issue. That's reading the room. You're negotiating a deal, and the other person keeps circling back to the same concern, even though you've addressed it logically. That tells you it's not a logical issue. It's an emotional one. There's a fear underneath that needs to be dealt with before you can move forward. That's reading the room. This skill will transform your relationships, your career, your ability to influence and inspire, because you're not just broadcasting your message, you're receiving theirs. You're having a real conversation, not a monologue. And here's how you develop this skill. You practice presence. You practice actually being there in the conversation instead of just waiting for your turn to talk. You watch body language. You listen to tone. You pay attention to what's not being said as much as what is. You make it a habit to ask yourself, what's really going on here? What's beneath the surface? What does this person need right now? And then you communicate to that need, not your agenda, their need. That's speaking smart. Now I want to talk about something uncomfortable, something that's holding most of you back more than anything else, your fear of conflict. You've been conditioned to believe that disagreement is bad, that challenging someone is disrespectful, that you should just go along to get along. And that's killing your communication. It's making you weak. It's making you invisible. Because powerful communication requires the courage to say difficult things, to set boundaries, to disagree respectfully, to stand for something even when it's uncomfortable. You cannot be an effective communicator if you're terrified of making people uncomfortable. You cannot speak your truth if you're constantly editing yourself to please everyone. And here's what happens when you avoid conflict. People walk all over you. Your needs don't get met. Your voice doesn't get heard. And resentment builds until you explode or shut down completely. Neither of those options serves you. So you've got to learn the skill of difficult conversations. You've got to develop the ability to address issues directly, respectfully, and powerfully. And there's a framework for this. It's simple, but it's not easy. State the facts without judgment. Share how it impacts you. Express what you need going forward. And invite dialogue. That's it. No attacking, no blaming, no making them wrong. Just clear, direct, honest communication about what's happening and what needs to change. When meetings start late, I feel disrespected and it throws off my entire schedule. Going forward, I need us to either start on time or give me advance notice if there's a delay. Can we make that work? See how that's powerful without being aggressive. See how it addresses the issue without attacking the person. That's speaking smart in difficult moments. And when you master this, your relationships transform. Because people respect directness. They respect someone who can address problems instead of letting them fester. They might not like what you're saying in the moment, but they'll respect how you're saying it. And that respect is the foundation of trust. And trust is the foundation of every meaningful relationship in your life. But here's what you need to understand. Difficult conversations get easier the more you have them. It's like building a muscle. The first time is terrifying. The 10th time is uncomfortable. The 100th time is just part of how you operate. So start practicing. Start small if you need to. Address the little things instead of letting them pile up. Speak up when something doesn't feel right instead of swallowing it. Set that boundary. Have that conversation. Because every time you do, you're not just solving that one problem. You're building your capacity for powerful communication. You're proving to yourself that you can handle difficult moments. You're becoming the person who doesn't run from conflict, but walks through it with grace and strength. And people notice that. They feel that. They respond to that. Now let me take you deeper into the psychology of influence.